Hey, William here. I want to do a quick video on this grandfather clock test run stand. I had a few people have asked me how I made it, if I had plans for it or anything.
I do not
have plans. I just built it as I thought of it. I did think about it a little bit ahead of time, knowing what I wanted to do. Several things I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to run several grandfather clocks. I wanted something sturdy that wasn't going to move around. I wanted to accommodate the movement with the dial, so I wanted to make it big enough to be able to fit the dial on. And what else? And then be able to run it with the chime rods. I like to hear the clocks chiming. That way I just know without looking at them whether they're actually functioning right or not. So what I did first is I made it out of 2x4s. Pretty simple, nothing elegant. You can see it's pretty big. I've got 52 inches. Now, while we're talking about this, remember that none of this is needs to be copied. If you're going to make one, you don't have to copy it the same way. I want to throw some ideas out there of what I thought of and some potential other ideas for you if you want. Nothing's set in stone when you build this kind of stuff as long as it functions. So we got what do we got? 52 inches long total, and then if I go, the top is about from 18 to 20, and the bottom overall width is about 30. Height, I wanted it tall enough in order to run the big grandfather clocks. Some of them have pretty long pendulums, different setups. Also, tubular chime movements. Like the Hershey's, they have the tube rack, hanging rack, that those tubes get pretty long, so I'm able to set those up in here too. Anyway, total height of 51 inches. Now, I'll show you a couple things I thought of while I was making this. All right, excuse me if this is bouncing around. Okay, we'll just get an overall view of what's going on here. All right. Got my Westminster chime notes in case I forget that. This is a little bracket. I'll show you what that's all about. Now there's some parts and pieces that go to this. Here's one of my temporary seat boards, what I call it, for grandfather clock. So mimicking a seat board, you can see I have a slot here. I'm going to get a measurement for you on that. Okay, here are the dimensions of the seat boards that I made as far as this slot is concerned. Approximately 9 3/4 gives you a good enough slot for the larger plate movements. And then this opening is an inch, 1 inch opening. Approximately 1 inch left over on each side, so that gives me, that's a little less than 1 inch, so it's 2 3/4 overall here. The width, of course, is going to be determined by how big you make the box on there for these to fit in. I said I got 1/2 inch. Yeah, this is 5/8, and then you could even have a 3/4 inch would work well too. It's a 1/2 inch thick. This is soft maple, a little bit stronger than just pine. And then I have these little index tabs screwed right on there. So the thinking behind this was, first off, adjustability. So I can move this anywhere I want along here. Then the other thing is with those pins riding down in here, I can't tip this. It won't tip over on me. So, and it won't slide around. So that kind of gives it a positive lock. Now, one of the thoughts I had, instead of dadoing out all these, and this is in 1-inch increments, 1-inch space between these right here, is possibly just drilling holes. So if a guy drilled a bunch of holes and just used a wood dowel pin or a steel pin, if you wanted to get fancy with it, that would work too. Now I have some other seat boards that are a little thicker. I think this is 5/8. Sometimes whoop, that's crooked. Sometimes the mounting screws differ in length and you need something a little bit thicker. A lot of seat boards are 3/4 inch. So you can make a series of these. And then I'm able to put, like I said, I can put several of these in here for running a bunch of clocks. Another thing I thought of was the chime rod situation. Here's a board. This is that soft maple again, with some holes drilled along here for some pins that I can adjust the height on it. And over the years I just picked up a few of these chime rod blocks with the rods, and whether the rods are missing, this one's missing a rod, or in pretty rough shape, you can see it doesn't have the strike side. That doesn't matter. They're cheap. So I got some different styles here that I can use for different style clocks. Let me see if I can show you what happens here. Once you get your movement set up on here, you can apply these chime rods if you want. Now, I've got a movement I'm going to set up here in a little bit, and I'll just do a really fast video of me setting that up, and you'll understand what I'm doing. So you can take your chime rods and set them in here into that same slot, and now you got something that you can hear banging away. Well, I'll show you how that thing is put together. Okay, so the chime rod block, I drilled some extra holes in here, just put a bolt through there, so that's bolted onto this board. A full thread with nut on each side. Now this allows me to fine tune it, so if I need to run this out a little bit further or in, then I can, because it's not always an exact 1-inch increment that I can set this up. I've also, you can see there's other holes in this board. I've also set up different chime rods, just screwed them on there temporarily to do some different setups. I've run wall clocks in here that had chime rods that I could screw right on here, and I could test it. I like testing things to just make sure everything's good to go. I recently put these little boards on here with a raised lip. You can see it's just a 1/4 inch piece, a little taller than the platform, that I can stick tweezers and screwdriver or whatever tools. If I got taper pins, I'm putting something together, I can just set them in here. They don't roll away, and just holds things for me. The bottom is for structural purposes here, to keep the legs tied together, but it also, because it's low enough, I'm also able to stand up on this. Oops. And when I'm standing on here, then I can look down into the escapement or whatever. Gives me a little extra height, so it acts a little bit like a step stool. This, I'll show you quick, is a bracket that I put on there for one of these. Now, I don't know who that is. Somebody made this, where it came from. Handcrafted by somebody here. Anyway, I picked this up somewhere, but this is a cuckoo clock run stand, and that'll slip in there. I like to be able to take that off and get it out of the way. So when I set it up in here, set a cuckoo clock on there, I can work on it or make any adjustments from the back side of the cuckoo clock, and then it just sits on that. Works pretty good. Gives me some height for the weights, and instead of taking your cuckoo clock on and off the wall, you can work on it and make adjustments right there. Okay, these are just structural, 45-degree angle. The first thing I made when I made this was the box. As you can see, if I took this apart, I could have just one box. One thought on my dimensions, this inside dimension here, was to accommodate your dial. I've got a dial I'm working on. Let me bring you right back. Part of the thought process was to be able to have space in between here for dials. Now this is a smaller dial. I always like to bring the dial home if I can. That way I can run it. This one has the moon phase, of course. I've got the gearing off of it because it was all kind of rusted up. For that purpose, to just make sure those things are running smoothly, and then I can test run it with the dial on, hands on, and make sure everything's set just right, making my minute hand adjustment, making sure nothing's binding when it's operating the moon phase, and so forth. So I got plenty of space in here for dials to fit. Now, like I said, I can use, I can run the Hershey's and the big tubular chime clocks on here. And what I would do there is I would take two of these, similar, and make sure that they're both the same thickness, slide them in, and then I would pull up, well, let me get one of these, pull up the actual seat board or put something on here, and then I just clamp it on this way, making sure, well, them seat boards normally have them tube racks mounted on them. So then the tube rack can actually hang off the back over here, and you can hang up all the tubes, test run it with that. Those, you need to do that, and it's a little easier for reinstalling your tube chimes when you got all the hammers adjusted right already. I got little screws in the side here. Basically all that does is hangs up my clipboards for jobs. This is a blank piece of paper, but if I got a job on here, it's got the customer's name, it's got all the documentation of what I did to the clock. So that's handy to have. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'll set up this other grandfather clock I got on the bench, and we'll just go really fast speed, and you'll just see how that all goes. Okay, well, there you have it. Now the chime rods here aren't working the best for what I want to do. I I'm having a little issue with this lever here that holds back the hammers, kind of in the way. The angle on the chime rods is wrong. But you get the basic idea on how I'm doing this. Got any other ideas? I did want to mention one thing I've thought about is possibly drilling some holes in here and then taking some wire rod and bending a little canopy over the top, putting plastic over it for dust. That's a thought. And wait a minute, hang on just a minute. I just thought of this. This might work. Hang on. What about if you took an umbrella for dust protection? How does this thing work? You could even mount something like that on there. Or a bunch of little ones or something. But all I'm showing you, or all I'm hoping for is brainstorm some ideas, see what you come up with. If you get any good ideas, post it on this channel or whatever, or make your own little video. I'd love to see it. Have a great day. Thanks for putting up with me. Talk to you later.